Hi everyone, and welcome to what I think is our last video actually in terms of the content. So congratulations on getting this far, and we're almost done, so it's good. So what we're going to do is finally we're going to look at the impact that change has on the internal environment and all the possible changes. Now obviously there can be many different changes, but we're going to look at four main areas in which changes can happen. So first of all, what we'll look at is that, as we said in earlier videos, that changes can be large or they can be small. So what large major changes, such as change in structure and those mergers and those kind of things, they're what we call transformational changes. And then smaller changes that happen in an organisation, they often happen daily. They can be incremental changes. So they're just things that are trying to continue to improve processes and the way the organisation operates. So that's what those two terms are, just in case I put them in, just in case they ever come up in an exam, so that you know what they are. Now, the four areas that we're going to go through in terms of the impact on the internal environment, we're going to look at structure, changes in structure, how it changes culture, human resource management, and changes in operations. So let's get into the first one, which is changes in structure. So going back to, first of all these four things, they're pretty much things that we've learnt before, but we're just looking at, all right, how does change impact that area? So we've obviously done structures before. We've spoken about flatter structures. Changes, normally middle management positions are abolished, or some, not all of them, but some are abolished in terms to flatten a particular structure. That could be to either save costs, or it could be to improve communication, or you're getting them to work in teams. Outsourcing, many organisations these days outsource some of their non-core projects to contractors. That can help again minimise costs and creates flexibility for them. It might be that that they don't need that particular job done all the time, 12 months of the year. So outsourcing can help with that flexibility. And also work teams linked with flatter structures. So these days it's becoming more and more common that teamwork is happening in organisations that allows them to be flexible, more responsive, and creates an environment where creativity and productivity is optimised. Now, corporate culture. So change can impact on the corporate culture as well. Just imagine two organisations merging together. That's going to impact the culture. Obviously, two different cultures coming together can be really difficult to manage. I've got the example there. Well, first of all, changes from that are made from the internal or external environment should be reflected in the corporate culture. So even if you had a change in policy, that should be implemented into the corporate culture. That means that when people leave the organisation that have implemented those changes or have been driving those changes, that new people within the organisation that come into the organisation, if whatever the change is, if that's embedded in the culture, then they'll pick that up easy enough. So that change won't be lost. Now I've got an example here of, this is a massive change where Celecom, which was government owned, so it was in the public sector, was sold off to private investors. So it's obviously listed on the stock exchange. So it went into the private sector and became Telstra. That was a major change in their corporate culture. Now you've gone from an environment as an employee where, well, first of all, Telecom was the only telecommunications company in Australia, or organisation in Australia, and so there was no competition, and then there was no real urgency to make profits, not like there is when you're owned by shareholders and listed on the stock exchange. To then go and become listed on the stock exchange, and so you're there to make a profit, and that's your goal, your sole purpose is to make a profit. Therefore, that culture changes. Like if you're an employee, you're then in a competitive environment where you're competing against Optus and Vodafone and all the different competitors that have come in over the years. So that changes the corporate culture, and so they might focus more on customer service, and Telstra has done that over the last 3 years since their share price dropped dramatically. So they realised that, all right, if we're going to remain competitive, then we have to focus on our customer service. So that will change the whole culture and what they value the most. Changes in human resources. I've got the example here of going from a 3-star, if there's an organisation going from a 3-star hotels and starting to implement 5-star service, then, and the reason I use that example is because it was an example or a case study in one of the exams one year, that can change the whole human resource department. So how you recruit and select employees is going to be altered, because all of a sudden the employees that you want need more experience in customer service, a higher level of customer service. They need more, a higher level of skills, maybe some qualifications, etc. So in terms of who you're recruiting, your pool of applicants, that's going to change. And your selection will also change. Who you're selecting to become your employees will change, because they need this higher level of skill and ability and knowledge and customer service skills. So that is going to alter the way you recruit and select people. As well, training is going to be very different. How you train your employees is, in terms of this scenario, you're obviously going to be training them in different procedures, because you might not have had room service before, and you might be cleaning more often, etc. So you might have to change the beds every day rather than just once every 3 days. So how you train your employees is definitely going to change in that scenario. And as a result, because of the higher expectations in a 5-star compared to a 3-star, your performance appraisals, your reward systems, all that's going to change. So whatever the change, and that's just one example, so wherever the change is going to happen, whatever the change is and how it's going to impact an organisation, it's going to impact your human resources. So because things are changing, therefore the type of people you need may change. Therefore, the skills that they require is going to change. Therefore, the training you provide is going to change. And because organisations are trying, normally what the changes they make is to improve the organisation, possibly their expectations go up, and therefore how you reward your employees and how the performance appraisals take place is all going to change. So it really impact human resource management majorly. And lastly, operations. So reducing operations costs is obviously important to gain a competitive advantage, because you're trying to achieve economies of scale. Therefore, having factories with newer technologies, creating smaller factories and flexible manufacturing, lean manufacturing, all those type of things, having a greater emphasis on quality. These are the impact that changes have on operations management. So everything that we went through in terms of with operations, in terms of quality, technology, facilities, and what's the other one? Materials management. All that may be affected due to particular changes. And that change could be from the external environment or the internal environment, but anything that an organisation is trying to implement, that will impact on the operations of the organisation. I've got down the bottom there, the change issue that well, first of all, you need to know a change issue. So you need to be able to study a change issue, and you need to know an organisation. So you need to study an organisation. What you need to know is how that change issue that you are studying impacts the internal environment of an organisation, and also you need the examples of how the internal environment of the organisation that you have studied has been impacted due to a particular issue. So that's important that you need to know that. In our class, we've done mergers and acquisitions, and so that's our major change issue. So just to recap, changes can be significant on the internal environment. They can be transformational or incremental. So transformational being a large type change and incremental being smaller type changes. And changes can impact the internal environment in many different ways, but the ones that we go through in depth are changes in structure, changes in culture, changes in human resource management, and the changes in operations. So well done. That is our last video of content. So you've made it this far. So all there is to go is your final SACs and your exam. So well done. And for more resources to help you improve your understanding of today's topic, come over to teachingbubble.com.